a man traveled toward Bennington by bus. When the coach arrived, his luggage was still there, and his timetable was still open. But he was gone. No fight was reported. No one described a cry for help. No passenger gave a clear account of him stepping off. The bus had followed a route through rural Vermont, where a stranger, a delay, or an unusual stop should have been noticed. Yet by the time it reached Bennington, one seat was empty, and one traveler had disappeared. That was only one of 5 cases later tied to the same stretch of southwestern Vermont, a place centered around Glastenbury Mountain, where between 1945 and 1950, a hunting guide, a college student, a bus passenger, a young child, and a woman walking back to camp all vanished under circumstances that still resist a simple explanation. The name came after the disappearances. Bennington Triangle was not an official police term. It was coined by American author Joseph A. Citro to describe a region of southwestern Vermont where several people went missing across a 5-year span. Citro later helped popularize the phrase in books, including Shadow Child, connecting documented disappearances with older folklore about Glastenbury and the surrounding mountains. The triangle itself has no fixed legal border. It is usually described as an area centered on Glastenbury Mountain and stretching toward Bennington, Woodford, Shaftesbury, and Somerset. Its edges are vague, but the landscape is real. Ridgelines, logging roads, abandoned settlements, rough trails, and dense woods that can seem manageable in daylight and become dangerous as weather changes or evening comes on. Before the disappearances became legend, the region had a more ordinary history. Glastenbury and nearby Somerset were once logging and industrial towns. Timber came down from the slopes. Workers and families lived in remote mountain communities. But by the late 19th century, the industries that had supported them were fading. Populations declined. In 1937, the Vermont General Assembly unincorporated both Glastenbury and Somerset, leaving them essentially ghost towns. By the 1940s, people around Bennington lived beside the remains of that older world. Abandoned roads, unused tracks, ruined foundations, and woods slowly reclaiming what had once been settlement. Hunters, hikers, students, and families still moved through the area. Bennington College was nearby. The long trail drew walkers into the mountains. Local residents knew the land could be harsh, but it was not yet a symbol of unexplained loss. Then the disappearances began. The first case came on November 12, 1945. Mitty Rivers was 74 years old, a local hunting and fishing guide, and he was leading a hunting party in the mountains near Glastenbury. He was not an inexperienced visitor. He was believed to know the terrain well, which made what happened harder to dismiss as a simple mistake. During the outing, Rivers moved ahead of the group. For a guide, that alone was not unusual, but he did not return. Searchers entered the surrounding wilderness looking for a man who, by ordinary expectations, should have been one of the least likely people to vanish there. He was not a tourist unfamiliar with the land. He was not a casual walker who had misjudged a trail. He was an experienced outdoorsman in country he was believed to understand. The most commonly cited trace was a single rifle cartridge found in a stream. It did not explain whether Rivers had fallen, become injured, lost his way, or encountered someone else. It was a clue without a conclusion. His body was never found. 13 months later, another disappearance drew far wider public attention. On December 1st, 1946, 18-year-old Paula Jean Weldon, a sophomore at Bennington College, left campus for a walk. Reports place her departure at about 2:45 in the afternoon. She was headed toward the long trail. She wore a red parka, jeans, and sneakers, clothing that would make her visible, but would not protect her through a winter night in Vermont. Witnesses saw her along the route toward the trail area. There was no confirmed sign of panic. No recovered note explained her intentions. No known plan to disappear was established. When she did not return, concern quickly became a search. Students, police, residents, and outside help joined the effort. Roads were checked, trails were searched, cabins and rough ground were examined. Her red parka should have stood out against the December landscape. Instead, no confirmed trace of Paula Weldon was found. The case unsettled the region because it began so plainly. A college student had gone for a walk in daylight. She was seen heading toward a known trail. Then, the record simply stopped. 3 years later, on December 1st, 1949, the same calendar date as Paula Weldon's disappearance, James Tedford vanished in a way that did not fit the mountain pattern at all. Tedford was traveling by bus toward Bennington after visiting relatives. He was an older man, often described as a veteran. Unlike Rivers or Weldon, he was not walking into woods. He was inside a public coach, among other passengers, following a route with scheduled stops. Reports say he was seen on the bus at the stop before Bennington. But when the coach arrived, Tedford was no longer aboard. His luggage remained behind. A timetable was reportedly still open on his seat. No passenger gave a clear account of him leaving. No disturbance was recorded. There was no immediate explanation for how a man could be present shortly before arrival and absent at the destination while his belongings continued on without him. A bus should have narrowed the possibilities. It has doors, stops, a route, and witnesses. Instead, Tedford's disappearance became one of the most disturbing parts of the Bennington sequence because it took place not in a forest, but in transit. The next case involved a child. On October 12, 1950, 8-year-old Paul Jepson was near the family truck while his mother tended to animals. He was wearing a red jacket, another bright piece of clothing that should have made him easier to spot in brush or open ground. Paul had not set out on a hike. He had not prepared to enter the woods. He was in the ordinary setting of a rural working property. Then he was gone. Searches moved through the area. Bloodhounds were reportedly brought in, and accounts say they followed a scent toward a highway. If accurate, that detail mattered. It suggested movement not simply deeper into the woods, but toward a road, a place where someone else could have passed. No confirmed answer followed. Paul Jepson was not found. 16 days later, another disappearance occurred near Somerset Reservoir. On October 28, 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer was hiking with her cousin, Herbert Elsner. During the outing, she reportedly slipped into a stream and got wet. The decision she made afterward was practical. She would return to camp, change clothes, and come back. It was meant to be a short separation in a recreational area, but Frida did not return. The search that followed was large. Hundreds of searchers were involved, and aircraft were used. The area around Somerset was searched repeatedly. For months, nothing resolved the case. Then on May 12, 1951, Frida Langer's body was found in an area searchers believed had already been covered. She was the only one of the major Bennington Triangle missing persons to be recovered. But even that discovery did not solve her disappearance. decomposition prevented a clear determination of cause of death. Investigators still could not determine precisely what had happened after she left to return to camp, how she had been missed in earlier searches, or why her remains were found only months later. By then, the cases had begun to form a pattern in public memory. November 1945, Mitty Rivers vanished while guiding a hunting party near Glastenbury. December 1946, Paula Weldon disappeared after leaving Bennington College for a walk toward the Long Trail. December 1949, James Tedford vanished from a bus approaching Bennington, leaving luggage and an open timetable behind. October 1950, Paul Jepson disappeared near his family's truck, with bloodhounds reportedly following his scent toward a highway. 16 days later, Frida Langer disappeared near Somerset Reservoir after leaving a hiking party to change clothes. 5 vanishings, 5 years, 1 region. But the facts do not point cleanly in one direction. The most grounded explanation is misadventure in difficult terrain. Glastenbury Mountain and the surrounding woods do not need folklore to be dangerous. Weather can shift. Trails can fade. Slopes and forest cover can disorient even experienced people. Injury, exposure, or a wrong turn can become fatal quickly, especially when daylight is limited. That explanation fits parts of the Rivers, Weldon, and Langer cases. Rivers was in mountain terrain. Weldon was underdressed for a prolonged December night. Langer disappeared during an outdoor trip and was later found in the broader search area. Dense Vermont woods can conceal a person, and searches can fail even when they are large and organized. But misadventure does not fit every fact equally well. Rivers was an experienced guide. Paula's red parka should have made her easier to see. Frida's body was later found where searchers believed they had already looked. Paul Jepson's reported scent trail toward a highway raises the possibility that his movement led toward a road rather than deeper wilderness. And James Tedford's case remains the hardest to place inside a wilderness explanation at all. A second possibility is human intervention. Paula Weldon was a young woman walking alone. Paul Jepson was a child who disappeared near a place where a vehicle could have passed. James Tedford may have left the bus voluntarily, under pressure, or at a stop no one later clearly remembered. This theory helps explain sudden disappearances and the absence of remains in some cases. But it also has serious limits. There was no confirmed offender, no confession, no shared crime scene, and no evidence tying all 5 missing people to one person or one crime. A third possibility is that the Bennington Triangle is a later framework placed over unrelated tragedies. The phrase gave the cases a shape. It connected them to Glastenbury Mountain, to older stories, and to a geography that was never officially defined. That explanation may account for the legend. It may explain why separate disappearances are now discussed together. But it does not erase the individual questions. What happened to an experienced guide who moved ahead of his hunting party and never came back? How did a college student in a red parka vanish after being seen on her way toward the Long Trail? Where did Paul Jepson go in the short time between being near the family truck and being missing? How was Frida Langer found months later in an area believed to have already been searched? And above all, how did James Tedford's belongings arrive in Bennington on a bus when James Tedford did not? Follow Whispered Cases for a new case every week. Subscribe so you never miss one.